the seeds of empire, military, and bureaucratic foundations. Picture this: a humble city-state nestled in the rolling hills of central Italy, surrounded by rivals on all sides, struggling to survive. Yet, within a few centuries, this small settlement would grow into an empire that spanned continents, dictating the fates of millions. How did Rome achieve the impossible? The answer lies in its unparalleled ability to adapt, innovate, and unite. This is the story of Rome's rise, a tale of resilience, vision, and relentless ambition. From myth to reality, the origins of Rome are steeped in mythology. Romulus and Remus, the legendary twins raised by a she-wolf, represent the city's foundational spirit of survival and conquest. But beyond the myth lies a gritty reality. Archaeological evidence points to Rome's establishment in 753 BCE, a small collection of settlements along the Tiber River. Its strategic location offered access to trade routes and natural defenses, but it was also a double-edged sword. Rome's neighbors, the Etruscans, Latins, and Sabines, posed constant threats. Adaptation and resilience. Rome's early survival depended on learning from its neighbors. The Etruscans introduced urban planning, engineering, and religious rituals that would become integral to Roman identity. The Greeks, whose colonies dotted southern Italy, offered lessons in governance and warfare. But unlike other cultures that assimilated passively, Rome adopted selectively and innovatively, tailoring foreign ideas to its unique needs. In this adaptability, we find a lesson for modern nations. Survival requires not just strength, but the humility to learn and the creativity to improve. The warrior society, building a martial tradition. In its early years, Rome was a warrior society. The Roman people saw themselves as descendants of Mars, the god of war, and conflict was woven into their identity. Military service wasn't just a duty, it was a sacred honor. Rome's armies were initially composed of citizen soldiers, farmers who traded their plows for swords when duty called. The phalanx and beyond. Borrowing heavily from Greek tactics, early Roman armies fought in tightly packed phalanxes. While effective against certain foes, the phalanx proved inflexible on Italy's rugged terrain. Rome's leaders, ever pragmatic, began experimenting with looser formations, paving the way for the legendary manipular legion. This shift reflects Rome's broader philosophy: rigidity is a weakness, but flexibility ensures survival. Today's organizations, from corporations to military units, can learn from this ethos. Transition to territorial conquest. Rome's first significant military victories came during the Latin Wars, as it subdued nearby tribes. But it was the Samnite Wars 343 to 290 BCE that transformed Rome into a regional power. These wars forced Rome to innovate, introducing lighter, more mobile troops and creating alliances with conquered peoples through a system of Latin rights. Diplomacy as a weapon. Conquest alone wasn't enough. Rome's genius lay in its ability to integrate conquered peoples. Unlike other ancient powers that subjugated through fear, Rome offered inclusion. Conquered cities could become allies, their elites given Roman citizenship in exchange for loyalty. Imagine the psychological impact. An enemy that doesn't just defeat you but offers you a share in its glory. This strategy created not just subjects but stakeholders, a model echoed centuries later in the British Empire. The birth of bureaucracy. As Rome expanded, it became clear that managing an empire required more than military might. The Roman Senate, initially an advisory council, evolved into a governing body capable of managing complex administrative tasks. Taxation systems were refined, and infrastructure projects like roads and aqueducts began to take shape. Early innovations. The census, introduced during the reign of King Servius Tullius, allowed Rome to assess its resources and allocate them effectively. Legal reforms standardized governance across territories, ensuring consistency and reducing corruption. Compare this to the early development of modern bureaucracies like those of France or China. Rome's early administrative experiments laid the groundwork for systems still in use today. A vision beyond the horizon. Rome's success wasn't just about pragmatism. It was fueled by an almost mythical sense of destiny. The concept of imperium, command, wasn't merely military, it was moral. Romans believed they had a divine mandate to bring order to the chaos of the world. Legacy of the kings. Although the Roman Republic would later demonize its monarchic past, the foundations laid by the kings were indispensable. The construction of the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's Great Sewer, and the establishment of the Roman Forum were monumental achievements that symbolized the city's aspirations. The road to greatness. Rome's early history is a testament to its resilience and vision. From a small city-state beset by enemies, it rose by combining the best ideas of its neighbors with its indomitable spirit. The seeds of empire were planted in these formative years, setting the stage for centuries of unparalleled dominance. As we journey further into Rome's history, we'll uncover how these foundations were tested and refined in the crucible of war. Stay with us as we explore the battles, betrayals, and breakthroughs that transformed Rome from a regional power into the master of the Mediterranean. The rise of the Republic or conquest and crisis. The Roman Republic wasn't born in triumph, it was forged in rebellion. Imagine a city tearing itself apart, its people revolting against their kings, yet somehow emerging stronger, more unified, and destined for greatness. This is the story of how Rome transitioned from monarchy to republic and embarked on a path of unrelenting conquest. But the journey wasn't smooth. It was riddled with betrayal, social unrest, and existential threats. How did the fledgling republic survive and thrive? Let's uncover the key moments and decisions that define this critical era. A republic emerges. The transition from monarchy to republic in 509 BCE wasn't just a political shift. It was a revolution born of frustration. The story of King Tarquin the Proud, whose tyranny and arrogance led to his downfall, is a pivotal moment in Roman history. The catalyst was the tragic tale of Lucretia, a noblewoman whose assault by Tarquin's son incited outrage across Rome.
Res publica.
The early republic was built on the idea of residentia publica, the public thing. Power was no longer concentrated in a single ruler but shared among elected officials. The consuls, two annually elected leaders, symbolized this new system. But while the republic promised equality, it was far from a democracy. Power rested firmly in the hands of the patricians, Rome's aristocratic elite. This divide between the patricians and plebeians, commoners, sowed the seeds of future conflict, reflecting a universal truth. Revolutions may change rulers, but addressing systemic inequality is a far greater challenge. Patricians versus plebeians. The early republic was a battleground for class struggle. The plebeians, who made up the bulk of Rome's population and army, demanded greater rights and representation. Their struggle culminated in the conflict of the orders, a centuries-long fight for political equality. The plebeian secession. In 494 BCE, the plebeians took a radical step. They withdrew from Rome, refusing to serve in its armies or participate in its economy. This act of collective defiance forced the patricians to negotiate. The result was the creation of the tribune of the plebs, a position that allowed plebeians to veto decisions harmful to their interests. The plebeians' success demonstrates the power of solidarity. Their actions resonate with later labor movements, from medieval guilds to modern unions. The 12 Tables. The plebeians' demand for legal transparency led to the creation of the 12 Tables in 450 BCE. These written laws, displayed publicly, marked a significant step toward justice and accountability. However, they also codified inequalities, such as harsh penalties for debtors and restrictions on intermarriage between classes. The 12 Tables highlight the paradox of progress. While they advanced legal fairness, they also entrenched existing hierarchies. This mirrors modern debates over laws that simultaneously empower and constrain. Rome versus its neighbors. As internal conflicts simmered, Rome turned its attention outward. Its early conquests were driven by necessity, securing resources and defending against hostile neighbors. The Republic's military campaigns in Latium, Etruria, and Samnium set the stage for its rise as a regional power. The Samnite Wars, a defining conflict. The Samnite Wars, 343 to 290 BCE, were a turning point. The Samnites, fierce mountain tribes, were Rome's most formidable opponents yet. The wars forced Rome to innovate, refining the manipular legion system and establishing colonies in strategic locations. These wars weren't just about territory, they were about survival. Rome's determination to win at all costs, despite devastating losses like the Caudine Forks, shaped its identity as a city that never surrendered. A clash of titans. While Rome's early expansions were local, its ambitions soon clashed with those of Carthage, a powerful maritime empire. The First Punic War, 264 to 241 BCE, was fought over Sicily, a wealthy island coveted by both powers. Naval innovation. Rome's lack of a navy was a critical disadvantage, but in typical Roman fashion, it adapted. Capturing a Carthaginian ship, Roman engineers reverse-engineered it, creating a fleet equipped with the corvus, a boarding device that turned sea battles into infantry engagements. This ingenuity exemplifies Rome's ability to turn weaknesses into strengths, a lesson for anyone facing seemingly insurmountable odds. Victory and consequences. Rome's victory in the First Punic War marked its emergence as a Mediterranean power. But the war also strained its economy, leading to social unrest and rebellions among its allies. Life in the early Republic. Amidst wars and political upheaval, Roman society evolved. The Republic was a patriarchal system, with the paterfamilias, head of the household, wielding immense authority. Religion played a central role, with rituals and omens guiding public and private decisions. Women's roles. Though largely excluded from political life, Roman women influenced society in subtle but significant ways. Figures like Cornelia, mother of the Gracchi brothers, exemplified the ideal Roman matron, intelligent, virtuous, and dedicated to her family. The limitations on women's rights in Rome reflect broader patterns in history, where societal contributions often go unrecognized. The seeds of revolution. By the late 3rd century BCE, cracks began to show in the Republic's foundations. The gap between rich and poor widened, and Rome's reliance on slave labor exacerbated social tensions. Landless soldiers returning from campaigns found themselves displaced, while wealthy elites amassed vast estates. The Gracchi brothers. The story of Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, tribunes who championed land reform, illustrates the Republic's deepening crises. Their attempts to redistribute land to the poor met fierce resistance from the Senate, leading to their assassinations and further polarization. The Gracchi's fate underscores a timeless lesson. Reformers who challenge entrenched power often face violent backlash. A republic tested. The Roman Republic's early centuries were marked by triumph and turmoil. Its innovative military, adaptable governance, and resilient society laid the groundwork for greatness. But as the Republic expanded, so did its challenges. The seeds of future crises were already sown, threatening the very system that had propelled Rome to prominence. How would Rome navigate these growing pains? Could the Republic balance its ideals with the realities of empire? Join us in the next chapter as we explore the Republic's golden age and the conflicts that would eventually lead to its transformation. Building the empire, economics, infrastructure, and integration. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was its empire. The mighty empire that stretched across 3 continents, from the sandy deserts of Egypt to the lush hills of Britain, wasn't just a product of military might, but also of intricate economic and infrastructural planning. In this chapter, we delve into how Rome managed to sustain its vast empire, the mechanisms behind its impressive economy, and the networks that kept the empire connected. But beyond the stone roads and grand amphitheaters, what truly made the Roman Empire thrive? Could it be that the same principles that allowed ancient Rome to prosper still echo in our modern world today? The Roman economic machine. Rome's empire wasn't just vast in territory. It was expansive in economic reach. From the distant lands of the East to the shores of the Western Mediterranean, Roman merchants, soldiers, and citizens were constantly exchanging goods, ideas, and services. So what fueled this massive economic engine? Taxation and resource allocation. At the heart of Rome's economic success was its taxation system, which funded both the military and public works. The empire's vast network of provinces contributed wealth through taxes in various forms, including land taxes, sales taxes, and customs duties. These funds ensured that Rome could maintain its legions, pay for its roads, and keep its people fed and entertained. Think of it like the modern tax system, but on an even grander scale. Today, we rely on taxes to maintain our infrastructure and military, but Rome perfected the system, using wealth from far-flung provinces to maintain an empire that spanned continents. Without a comprehensive taxation system, no empire can endure. The lifeblood of empire. Rome's empire was built on trade, connecting regions as far apart as Britain, India, and North Africa. The Mediterranean was the superhighway of the ancient world, and Rome's strategic position at its center made it a bustling hub of commerce. Roman merchants traded everything from spices and silk to wine and olive oil, ensuring a steady flow of wealth into the heart of the empire. Looking at today's global trade, we see echoes of Rome's network. Trade routes like the Silk Road connected Asia to Europe, just as the Mediterranean connected the diverse regions of the Roman Empire. Today, we have the internet and global logistics networks, but Rome had its own version driven by ships, roads, and merchant caravans. Money, slaves, and labor. The Roman economy was diverse and complex, with agriculture at its core. But Rome's economy was also bolstered by the use of slaves, whose labor fueled everything from agriculture to construction. Large estates known as latifundia were worked by slaves, producing goods for export and supplying the needs of the growing urban population. The reliance on slave labor was a major factor in Rome's economic success, but it was also one of the reasons for the eventual decline of the empire. It created stark social divisions and deep economic inequalities. The question arises, could Rome have flourished without the heavy reliance on slave labor? The backbone of empire. The Romans were master engineers. They didn't just conquer lands, they transformed them. Roads, aqueducts, and public buildings not only symbolized Roman power, but also ensured the smooth functioning of the empire's economy and military, paving the way for control. One of Rome's most enduring legacies is its vast network of roads, which stretched for over 250,000 miles at its peak. These roads weren't just for the legions. They were vital arteries for trade and communication, enabling swift movement of goods, soldiers, and messages across the empire. In many ways, these roads were the ancient equivalent of our highways and modern infrastructure systems, facilitating economic growth and military dominance. The saying, "all roads lead to Rome," wasn't just a metaphor. It was a reflection of how Rome's road network connected the vast empire to its capital. Engineering marvels. The Romans mastered the art of water transportation, constructing aqueducts that brought fresh water from distant sources into cities and towns. These aqueducts supplied not only drinking water but also water for baths, fountains, and irrigation systems. Today, when we think of infrastructure, we often think of the internet, electricity, and modern plumbing. But the Romans laid the foundation for these innovations. Their understanding of hydraulics and engineering was unparalleled, and their aqueducts are still studied by engineers today. The presence of water in every Roman town was a testament to their ability to integrate nature and engineering. Public works and urbanization. Public works, such as the construction of forums, temples, theaters, and amphitheaters, were essential to the Roman sense of civic pride. But more than just for show, these structures helped integrate conquered peoples into the Roman world. When we look at the public infrastructure today, modern stadiums, government buildings, and cultural centers, we can trace their origins back to Roman times. These structures were symbols of Roman culture, engineering prowess, and the cohesion of a diverse empire, Romanizing the provinces. Beyond the tangible economic and infrastructural elements, Rome's true success lay in its ability to integrate conquered territories into its empire. This was achieved through a combination of military dominance and cultural assimilation, which ensured loyalty from provincial populations. A unifying bond. One of the most powerful tools in Roman integration was the extension of Roman citizenship to conquered peoples. Over time, Roman citizenship was granted to many of Rome's allies and even to some enemies, providing them with rights and privileges that fostered loyalty to the Roman state. This process of Romanization helped integrate diverse cultures, languages, and religions into a single political entity. The granting of citizenship was a smart move by Rome. It made subjects feel like part of the empire rather than mere conquests. Today, this idea of inclusion is echoed in the concept of universal rights and citizenship in many modern states. The spread of Roman culture. The Roman Empire was not just a political entity but a cultural one. Latin became the lingua franca across the empire, and Roman customs, laws, and architecture were adopted by conquered peoples. This cultural integration helped bind the empire together and ensure that its diverse populations shared a common identity. When we look at modern empires, especially in terms of cultural influence, we see a parallel to Roman cultural integration. The spread of Western ideals and culture through globalization today mirrors the Roman Empire's cultural dominance in its time. Lessons from the past. As we reflect on the success of the Roman Empire, it's impossible to ignore the striking similarities between ancient Rome and the modern world. While we no longer rely on legions to maintain control, our economies and infrastructures still follow some of the principles that Rome established over 2,000 years ago. Economic integration and global markets. Just as Rome created a vast network of trade routes and taxed its provinces to fund the state, today's global markets are intertwined, with countries and companies relying on each other for goods, services, and resources. The modern world is connected in ways that are reminiscent of Rome's strategic dominance of the Mediterranean. One can't help but see the parallels between Rome's careful economic integration and the interconnected nature of our modern global economy. Just as the Romans ensured stability through trade and resource allocation, modern economies rely on a similar system of interdependent markets. Infrastructure as power. The Romans understood that infrastructure wasn't just about utility, it was about power. Roads, aqueducts, and public buildings symbolized Roman authority. Today, we still see infrastructure projects as a symbol of a country's strength. Whether it's China's Belt and Road Initiative or America's interstate system, infrastructure continues to play a key role in economic power. The Roman legacy is still alive today in our modern world, and in some ways, we owe our infrastructure and economic strategies to their early innovations. The enduring legacy of Rome. Rome's empire didn't just survive through military conquest. It thrived through a sophisticated system of economic integration, cultural assimilation, and impressive infrastructure. By comparing Rome's strategies to our modern systems, we can see just how far-reaching the influence of the ancient empire has been. Today, Rome's legacy still echoes in the ways we build our economies, cities, and even our sense of unity across borders. The Roman Empire may have fallen, but its lessons, both the successes and the failures, are timeless, providing invaluable insights into the challenges and opportunities of empire building in any era. The fall of Rome and its lasting lessons. What happened and why it matters today. The crumbling of the empire. We've journeyed through the rise and the remarkable strategies that sustained the Roman Empire at its peak. But no empire lasts forever, and Rome was no exception. The grandeur of the Colosseum, the expanse of its roads, and the wealth of its trade all concealed the deep cracks in its foundation. The final act of this monumental empire story is just as significant as its rise, not just for what happened, but for the lessons it holds for us today. The collapse of the Roman Empire didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process, marked by internal strife, economic turmoil, and external pressures. In this chapter, we'll explore why such a mighty empire fell and what modern societies can learn from its collapse. By examining the historical facts and infusing personal analysis, we can uncover why Rome's fall is still relevant today. A gradual erosion. Rome's fall didn't occur in one catastrophic event, but rather through a series of gradual declines. By the 3rd century AD, the empire was already showing signs of wear. Its vast borders were difficult to defend, and internal corruption was becoming rampant. The once ironclad Roman legions were no longer the formidable force they once were. Economic stress and corruption. One of the main reasons for the decline was economic strain. The Roman economy, built on slave labor, began to falter. As the empire expanded, it became harder to maintain its infrastructure and military. Trade networks, once the lifeblood of Rome, began to deteriorate due to internal instability and external attacks. The monetary system, reliant on gold and silver, also faced inflation and debasement, contributing to the financial crisis. The fall of the Roman economy reminds me of the fragility of modern economies. In today's world, countries face similar challenges. The over-reliance on debt, the depletion of natural resources, and the global financial system's vulnerability to inflation. Rome's inability to adapt its economic model and integrate new methods contributed significantly to its collapse. Could today's economies be heading toward a similar fate if they don't adjust to the demands of modernity? Political instability and leadership struggles. Another critical factor was political instability. The Roman Empire was no stranger to political infighting. Emperors were frequently overthrown or assassinated, and power struggles within the government weakened the unity of the state. The system of succession, initially based on merit and public support, devolved into a series of violent coups and corrupt administrations. This instability sapped the empire's ability to respond effectively to internal and external threats. Looking at today's world, political instability still remains a potent issue. Countries rife with corruption and power struggles often find themselves unable to respond to global or national crises effectively. In this way, the Roman experience offers a stark warning. A lack of stable governance can lead to societal disintegration. The role of barbarian invasions. While internal issues played a major role, external threats accelerated the empire's collapse. From the 4th century onward, barbarian invasions, tribes such as the Vandals, Huns, and Visigoths, rampaged through the empire's borders. These invasions, along with the empire's declining military prowess, led to the weakening of Roman power in the West. The sack of Rome. One of the most iconic moments in the decline of the Roman Empire was the sack of Rome in 410 AD by the Visigoths, led by King Alaric. The once mighty city, the symbol of Rome's imperial power, was looted and burned. This event shocked the empire and signaled that Rome's might was no longer absolute. The fall of the Western Roman Empire to the Visigoths is often likened to the symbolic fall of modern empires when they face economic and military collapse. What's fascinating here is the role of the internal weaknesses, corruption, political instability, and poor leadership, creating a vulnerability to external forces. It's a pattern that can be seen in modern times as well, where powerful nations are increasingly susceptible to the consequences of their own failings. The fall of the Western Roman Empire. The official fall of the Western Roman Empire is often dated to 476 AD, when the last Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by Odoacer, a Germanic king. This event, though symbolic, marked the end of an era and the beginning of what historians call the Dark Ages in Europe. The transition from the Roman Empire to the so-called Dark Ages wasn't a sudden plunge into chaos. In fact, many of the traditions and infrastructures of the Roman Empire persisted, albeit in a reduced form. The collapse of empires, historically speaking, has always been a slow and complex process. This makes me think about the cyclical nature of history. Today's superpowers may eventually face challenges that lead to their decline, not because of an immediate threat, but through a combination of internal decay and external pressures. A different fate. While the Western Roman Empire fell in 476 AD, the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire, continued for nearly another 1,000 years. Centered in Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, the Byzantine Empire preserved Roman law, culture, and government while adapting to the changing world. The Byzantine survival story. The Byzantine Empire survived because it adapted. It invested heavily in fortifications, diplomacy, and religion, particularly Christianity, which united its people. Byzantium also benefited from its strategic location, which allowed it to control trade routes between Europe and Asia. This story of the Byzantine Empire is a reminder that even in times of crisis, adaptation can be the key to survival. The lessons here aren't just historical, they're vital for modern institutions and nations. What can we learn from the Byzantines? Adaptability, resilience, and strategic vision can keep even the most turbulent states afloat. In our fast-paced world today, those who fail to adapt may not survive. What Rome left behind. Although the Roman Empire fell, its legacy endures. Roman laws, governance systems, and architectural techniques have had an enduring influence on the development of Western civilization. In many ways, the Roman Empire didn't truly fall. It evolved and integrated into the fabric of Europe's medieval kingdoms and beyond. Roman law and government. The Roman legal system, with its principles of citizenship and justice, laid the foundation for modern legal systems in Europe and the Americas. Many modern concepts of democracy, individual rights, and governance trace their origins back to Rome. Just as the Roman Empire's fall didn't erase its legacy, the fall of modern empires today doesn't negate their influence on the future. If anything, it strengthens the argument that the ideas that these systems produced can transcend time and place. The cycle of history, a lesson for modern times. The Roman Empire, like all great powers, faced the consequences of its own growth and expansion. The complexities of its decline, economic turmoil, political instability, external invasions, are not just ancient problems but modern ones as well. Today, as we face global economic challenges, political divides, and the threat of external pressures, we can look back at Rome's fall for guidance. In the end, Rome's legacy is a testament to human achievement, but its fall serves as a powerful reminder of the fragility of even the greatest empires. The lessons learned from its rise and eventual collapse are more relevant now than ever. Could we be headed toward a similar fate, or will we learn from history and adapt? That's a question we must all answer.